should do the service from here. Maybe I will do that one Sunday. That could be good. I can't see yet, but yeah. There we go. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee. Welcome and Happy New Year. We are so glad that you're here with us this morning at the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. My name is Reverend Connie Simon. In this urban religious community, we welcome all. Come, come, whoever you are, whether you walk in, roll in, stroll in, or tune in on YouTube, or watch us later. All are welcome in this house of faith. We begin this morning every time we are gathered by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith. We do so this morning with the words of Lisa Doge, and it's called the Chalice Lighting for the New Year. For the new year, just days old, beginning today, always beginning, we light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise. For beginnings that emerge out of endings, appear amidst continuity, become visible in hindsight. We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise. For all the times, and all the ways we have begun anew together, we light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise.
A Flicker of Hope by Julia Cook, illustrated by Mackenzie Haley. Have you ever felt like I do? My flame used to be bright and strong, but now it's just a flicker. I have all these dark clouds hovering over me, but they don't feel like clouds. To me, they feel like mountains. I try hard to push them away, but they keep coming back, and I'm so tired of trying. You know, a brighter flame can lighten up those heavy clouds of yours. Then they'd be easier to push away. You can see them too? Nope. They're your clouds. Only you can see them. But I can tell your flame isn't very bright right now. How do you know? It's not the how I know that matters. It's the what I know. Looks like you could use a little boost of hope. How did you do that? Since you're standing right underneath your clouds, all you can see is dark. They may seem impossible to move. But when you reach out for help, others can share their gifts with you. Amazing things can happen when we use our gifts. Gifts? What gifts? I don't have any gifts. Your unique light is your priceless gift. No one can light up the world around you like you can. Well, I can't light up anything around me right now. I don't have it in me. Why? Because I can't do anything right. I'm never going to be good enough. Who I want to become seems impossible. And you should hear what people say about me. Bad things? Awful things. Are they true? No, but they might as well be. Everyone thinks they are. Oh, and to top it all off, someone who really matters to me isn't here anymore. Today is just really hard, and I don't see how tomorrow's going to get any better. In fact, it might even be worse. I'm running out of hope. Then let me give you another little boost. Wow! Look how beautiful your light is. When your clouds get too dark and too heavy to push away, reach out and ask, "Can I borrow some light? I'm having a really bad day." Hope builders are everywhere, but only you can see your clouds. So grab some courage and ask for help. And don't worry about being too proud. It's always okay to admit to yourself, "I just can't do it today." Everyone needs somebody sometimes to help them find their way. But what if they say no? Then you ask somebody else, and you keep asking a bunch of different ways until you find someone who says yes. Just don't ever stop asking. You have to find a way to stay lit, no matter what. Why? Because if your flame goes out, you might not be able to relight it, and that would be the saddest thing ever. Why? Because you are needed. You are here for a reason. No one else in the world has a light like yours. When flames go out before it's time, the hearts that are left behind are broken forever. Flames that go dark too early leave many gifts which never get shared. And that's so unfair. You are beautiful, and you have a purpose and very special gifts, even if you might not know what those are yet. But really, how do you know all of this stuff? Because sometimes I have dark clouds hovering over me too. But they don't feel like clouds. To me, they feel like mountains. Only I can see them. I try hard to push them away, but they keep coming back. My flame turns into a flicker, but it's a flicker of hope. Even though it seems like I can't do anything right, and I feel like I'm never going to be good enough, and who I want to become seems impossible. And even though people say awful things about me that aren't true, and everyone believes them, oh, and someone who really matters to me isn't here anymore, I tell myself that I'm needed. I remind myself that I matter. I have special gifts to share with others. I choose to believe the world is better with my light in it. And I know that I need some help. So I ask. And I keep asking. And I keep reaching out to others until I find someone who can share their flame with me and give me strength and a little boost of hope. Then, amazing things happen to both of us. So when I saw your flame, I just knew I needed to give you a little boost of hope. See? That's what a hope builder does. When you share your light, one little candle can grow into a whole hope building community. You know, a brighter flame can lighten up those heavy clouds of yours. Then they'd be easier to push away. You can see them too? Nope. They're your clouds. Only you can see them. But I can tell your flame isn't very bright right now. How do you know? It's not the how I know that matters. It's the what I know. Looks like you could use a little boost of hope. Well, my friends, we have arrived. It is finally 2021. Every new year comes with new hope. And this year, perhaps more than any other. But it has been hard. I know sometimes it has been too hard to hold on to that hope. If you found your flame flickering recently, I wonder who you can turn to ask for help. And if your flame has endured, if you find it is shining bright more than ever, I wonder what gifts you have to share with the world this year.
Why do we drop stones in water? Why do we do this section of the service that we call joys and sorrows? We do this as a reminder that we are all interconnected. We do this as an opportunity to acknowledge that each of us as individuals and us as a collective society and our world and all creatures in it experience joys and sorrows outside this room or outside this hour every Sunday. We come together to worship in our homes, in this space, on Thursday at 4 o'clock, whenever you watch this video. We are worshiping together, but the rest of the time of the week, the other 167 hours, we are apart. And life happens. So it's important that we take this opportunity to acknowledge that there are essential workers right now, nurses and doctors who are working themselves beyond the point of exhaustion. That there are more than 125,000 people hospitalized right now with COVID. That there are people across this country homes may have been lost to fire within the last 24 hours. That there are people who have just found out that a loved one has died from some other reason. And at the same time, all across this country, all across the world, people are hearing the words, "I love you," for the first time. They're celebrating moments of great joy and moments of small joy. A child is taking its first steps right now. They're celebrating moments of big sorrow, or they're experiencing moments of big sorrow and small losses, tiny setbacks. It's important to us that we acknowledge those every week. Now, why do we choose stones and water? This stone represents the person or peoples or creature that's experienced the joy or the sorrow. It's not a permanent object because stones don't last forever. They too will wear away. But we can think of them as kind of representing our lifetime. And why do we use water? Water symbolizes the healing power of human compassion, the healing powers of the earth, the healing powers of love. And this is not just any water. This is special water, partially special water. Every year, we have a thing that we call a water communion, wherein people bring water or pour water that's provided into a communal vase, and with it they offer their hopes and blessings for the community for the year ahead. We began this tradition here in 2018 with my arrival as the minister. We saved all the water, we boiled it, and we put it into this bottle. The following year, when we had water communion, put some of that water in the communal vase and added more water to it and boiled it and kept it. Through the course of the year, that water is used for baby blessings, it's used at memorial services, and it's used as part of our joys and sorrows. This water that has been blessed by hundreds who have come through this door, has healing powers. Some of the things that people said they were bringing to our water communion: joy, love, singing, danger, adventure. All of those things are in this water. And with it, when we drop in our joy or drop in our sorrow, the water's power hits it. That water has the power to amplify our joys and to soften our sorrows. So for this week, we will drop 3 stones. We will drop 1 stone for those we've named, for those whose names we know, people who are important to us. Speak that name now if you like. 1 stone for those we know. We drop another stone for those names that we don't know. That person that you might have passed on the street who looked like they were struggling. That person who you heard about on the news, that someone passed away but you don't know who. The second stone is always for those whose names we do not know. And we drop a stone often for those whose names are carefully guarded in our hearts. Sometimes we know the name and we don't want to speak it out loud, either because it hurts too much or it's so precious and personal to us that we keep it closely guarded in our hearts. That's why we drop the 3rd stone. After we drop our stones, I always invite you to join me in a moment of silent meditation, reflection, or prayer. So I will ask you to do that with me now, after which I'm going to read a short piece and we'll hear a piece of music. Please join me in silence. I have adapted this prayer, this welcome from Sylvia Howell for our new year. Like Janus, we gather with part of us looking backward and part of us looking forward. We gather on the edge of the new year, saddened by our losses, cherishing our joys, aware of our failures, mindful of days gone by. We gather on the cusp of this new year, eager to begin anew, hopeful for what lies ahead, promising to make changes, anticipating tomorrows and tomorrows. We invite all to join in this celebration of life, knowing that life includes good and bad, endings and beginnings. Spirit of life, we ask that you make it so. At this time, we will now enter into a period of gratitude for our offering. Our offering allows us to do the work of this church, both inside and outside our walls. Giving to First Church is easy. You can text GIVE to 513-717-7373. If you have access to our Breeze member software system, you can click Give Now. And anyone can give online at www.firstuu.com. You may also mail a check to 536 Linton Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45219. Every month, we designate one organization to receive our shared plate for that month. This month, that organization is the Cincinnati Interfaith Workers Center. Next week, we'll have a service devoted exclusively to the amazing work that's happening at CIWC. You can make a contribution to CIWC at any time between now and January 31st using any of the methods that show on the screen. If you do wish to make sure that your contribution goes specifically to CIWC, please be sure to select that option in the drop-down box if you're giving online, or if you're mailing a check, write CIWC in the memo line. Our offering will now be gratefully received. If you're a TV watcher, you've probably seen an ad that's been playing for the last week or so for Match.com, where Satan is meeting his match in a public park. He's got his horn, where Satan is meeting his match in a public park. He's got his horns and the whole thing, the pitchfork and everything, and this attractive-looking young woman comes up, and Satan says, 2020, and she smiles and says, call me 2020. And they instantly fall in love. They watch destruction and tear things up and do all the things that you might think Satan would do with 2020. It's a very cute commercial, I guess is the word for it. And you've probably also seen messages that people are saying 2020 is absolutely the worst year ever. I was reading the newspaper and there was a photo in there of a sandwich board outside a restaurant that said, now showing 2020, written by Stephen King, directed by Quentin Tarantino. Lauren LeBlue tweeted, if 2020 was a person, it would be my ex. We have heard it all over the place that 2020 is the worst year ever. We're all so glad that it's over. I got to admit it, even I'm glad that 2020 is over, and I'm one who lives by the motto of don't rush time away. 2020 was a hard year. But was it really the worst year ever? I'm not so sure. It kind of feels like it, but there have been other bad years in my life. The year that I lost my father, the year that I lost my mother. I mean, there have been many bad years, but 2020 just feels somehow different, worse than all the others. Let's think about all of the things that happened in 2020. We had wildfires in California and all over the West. We had hurricanes wreak havoc along the Gulf Coast and even up the East Coast. Isaias came up the Atlantic coast and did a significant amount of damage. There are still children in cages, children separated from their families, immigrants who were not treated well in this supposed land of welcome. The President of the United States was tried and acquitted after being impeached at the end of 2019. Our election, well, I don't know where to start with that election. The election of 2020 is still going on, and it's January 3rd. There were more police killings of unarmed Black Americans this year, and they led to a groundswell of rage, of anger, of heartbreak, of resilience and resistance and protest. And unfortunately, the response of our government was to use tear gas on some U.S. citizens. The President of the United States contracted coronavirus himself, all the while not giving it the attention that it deserved and not leading us through this pandemic. To date, the coronavirus has swept the globe and affected more than 20 million people in the United States and killed over 300,000. We're on our way to 400,000. Murder hornets arrived in the United States. Invasive species continued to plague certain areas of the U.S. The economic impact of the coronavirus has affected almost everyone, with wages being lost, businesses closing, people being furloughed, lost hours. It's been heartbreaking. We've also lost many people, many creative people this year. Alex Trebek, Chadwick Boseman, Sean Connery, Eddie Van Halen, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and John Lewis. We lost some amazing talent, some amazingly creative people. It makes me wonder, was 2020 really the worst year ever? And then there were the things that happened in this city, the corruption that plagued our city council, our city government here in Hamilton County. Judges and councilmen and people being carted off to jail. This doesn't make sense. And we've had some issues happen here in the church. We've had some hard times. We began this year with unwanted attention from a person who meant to do us harm. And each of us, whoever we are, has suffered some sorrows this year. Whether you've lost a loved one or been affected by the coronavirus or some other illness or oppression, we've all felt it. And it's just made us think 2020 is the worst year ever. So of course, some historians had to get together to see whether this was really true. Was 2020 really the worst year ever? No. In terms of pandemics, coronavirus didn't even make the top 3. The coronavirus fell down below like number 6 or 7 after the Black Death, 1348, the plague that ravaged Europe. It's behind the Holocaust in 1944, when millions of Jewish humans lost their lives. It's behind the eruption of a volcano in 1816 in Indonesia that killed millions of people. Even here in the United States, 2020 doesn't rank as our worst year. Here in the United States, it falls in at number 8. And I'll tell you which ones were before it. We'll do it like a countdown here. So number 8 was 2020. Number 7 was September 11th, 2001. 2001 was a bad year as lives were lost. The Cuban Missile Crisis made 1962 our 6th worst year. The racial riots and assassinations and upheaval and harm and violence of 1968 make that number 5. The influenza epidemic of 1918 ranked number 4. The Trail of Tears, in which many indigenous Americans, indigenous people were force-marched away from their homes, ranks as number 3. Number 2 was 1929, with the stock market crash and the start of the Great Depression. But the worst year, according to this group of historians, was 1862, when our nation was coming apart at the seams through civil war. Some would wonder, is that going to happen now? We still deal with the aftermath of this election. I don't know. 1862 ranked as the worst year. Now, I'm not trying to diminish anything that happened in 2020, because it did suck. Let's just be honest. 2020 sucked in a lot of ways. I think it feels worse to us because it's so close. It's so recent. The calendar changed, but it doesn't really feel like 2020 is over. The same issues are still with us. 2020 feels so much worse because it touched so many of our lives. 1 in 1,000 people has been touched by coronavirus in one way or another. You know someone, you lost a job because of it, your income was affected. 1 in 1,000. I think there are probably more than that. And 2020 feels worse because for many of us, it's the worst year in our adult lifetime. 1838 and 1862 and 1929 are not years that we remember. I was not born then. So whatever feels more current and more recent to us somehow has a greater impact on us. But let's not dwell on the bad things. In 2020, some good things happened. A vaccine was created. Multiple vaccines were created. We started appreciating essential workers, nurses and doctors and truck drivers and people who work on sanitation trucks and grocery store clerks. We learned new ways to connect. And then we used those new ways to reach out to people that we haven't seen or spoken to in years. Yeah, maybe you can't travel to London to see someone, but you can get on Zoom. And it allowed you to connect in ways that we couldn't. Look at what we did in terms of voter turnout. More people voted in the 2020 presidential election than have ever voted in any election. People are more engaged than ever. We realized our racial problems here. We realized just how deep the problem goes. We started a movement. I take that back. We accelerated a movement. We saw action start to happen. Confederate statues coming down, people really looking at their privilege and making change. The Supreme Court of the United States ruled you can't be fired for being gay or transgender. It also upheld the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. Crayola issued real skin tones. So for the first time, kids in my family can find a skin tone crayon in the box. This year still, things happened in our own personal lives. Our children, our youth graduated from high school and college. They finished graduate school. Babies were born. People were still married this year. They got engaged. They celebrated anniversaries. People adopted dogs. I'm one of them. And a panda was born at the National Zoo on August 21st. So I'm not minimizing the bad things that happened in 2020, but I'm saying that maybe it's not all bad. We can't wallow in what happened in 2020. We have to look forward, because no matter how hard we try, we can't make it be 2020 again. It is 2021. And we have an opportunity. We have a responsibility in 2021 to make things better. Better for this world, better for this nation, better for this city, this congregation, and for our ourselves. We have the opportunity. It starts with us doing our internal work. So I'm going to give you a challenge, a few minutes to think about it. I ask you to reflect on the state of your life right now and to consider 3 questions. And then you're going to hear some music and you'll have a chance to think about them. The 3 questions are, what lessons have we learned in this past year and which new ones now call us forward? To whom do we still owe an apology or expression of thanks? And with whom must we draw fresh boundaries? Take a moment to think about those. So here we are. You've had a moment to think about those questions, to think about the state of your life right now, and to decide what your work is going to be going forward. Maybe you do that by making New Year's resolutions. I used to do that. And this year I was listening to some podcast, I don't remember what it was, but they said people shouldn't make resolutions, should only make goals, should only set goals for the new year. Resolutions are meaningless. And that made me start thinking, well, really, what's the difference between a resolution and a goal? A resolution is a firm decision to do or not do something. A resolution is a statement of intention. But a goal is the object of your ambition or that desired result. A goal, as opposed to being a statement of intention, is a statement of commitment. So we make these resolutions every year. Lose weight, quit smoking, read more, exercise more. You know the litany. Those are the top ones that come up every year for folks. But they don't always work. Do you know that 80% of New Year's resolutions are not kept? They go by the wayside after about 3 weeks. Why might that be? Well, partially because we're not clear on whether we're making a resolution or we're setting a goal. Resolutions fail because there are often big gaps in there. If you say, I will get in shape, that's a really, really big thing to say. There's nothing specific to go along with it. The odds of you being able to just achieve that by just saying, yeah, I'm going to get in shape, doesn't work. They're also binary. I will get in shape. I won't smoke. It's either or. If you slip up just one day, you failed. Hence why 80% of resolutions fail. So let's talk about goals. Does that make it better? They tell you your goals should be SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. It sounds very formal and very corporate. And you either make it or you don't. If you achieve the goal, you are a success. If you don't meet the goal, you have failed. You don't get grace. You have failed. That doesn't feel good to me either. That kind of perpetuates some of our systems of oppression to me. Goals are, I know we need goals for some things, but it feels very harsh when we impose them on ourselves sometimes. There's a guy, a minister in Wilmington, North Carolina, named Mike Ashcroft, who wrote a book with Rachel Olson, who is a teacher and life coach, called My One Word. And instead of making resolutions, they propose that every year you should have one word. That's one single focus that centers on your character and creates a vision for your future. I started doing this back in 2019. I didn't really know I was doing it, but I was doing it. And for me, it's setting my core values, revisiting, what does that mean? This is some work that we can do. And I invite you to consider this as a plan for 2021. Start looking at your core values. What matters most to you? How do you live your life? What are your specific values? What is immutable, non-negotiable? For me, there are 4. Knowledge. Not just acquiring it to hoard it, but acquiring it to be able to share it. Learning from others, hearing their stories. Learning how to use the knowledge I have to support others. Integrity is my second one, because in the end, that's all I can control. Service, because that is what I am called to do. And love, because love is my divine. That is my supreme being. So the second part of this, after you've figured out what your core values are, ask yourself this question. What do I need to do to be more in line with my values? What do I need to do? Well, one way to start thinking about that might be to revisit the question we had on the screen. What lessons have you learned in this past year, and which new ones now call you forward? To whom do you still owe an apology or an expression of thanks? And with whom must you draw fresh boundaries this year? For me, I'm asking myself, what do I need to do more of, or do better of, or do less of? What do I need to stop doing in order to be more in my values? How can I be more authentic and live in my integrity? How can I realign myself with love? Now, I have some ideas, some things, but I'm not going to share those with you because those are private to me. I will share with you what my word is. My word for 2021 is resolve. That is my word. In 2019, my word was forward. Last year, I didn't set a word. But this year, it's resolve. Because I am setting new intentions this year. I am creating goals, but I am also striving to be more present and more in the moment. What would your word be? I want you to think about this. What would your word be for 2021? Write it down somewhere. Put it where you can see it. Make it your screensaver. Talk about it at coffee hour. Talk about it with your friends, with your family. Ask your kids, what's their word for this year? Share it as you feel comfortable. So I checked out the One Word website to see what words people were posting so far. And words that I saw on there so far were minimize, joy, pivot, see, obedience, anyway. It doesn't matter what your word is. Your word could be hippopotamus. Your word could be chair. Your word could be floor. Your word could be water. It's whatever is personal and meaningful to you. Think about your one word. Write it down. Share it with someone. Hold on to it. Because when we come back together, when we open the doors of this church again for physical gathering, the first thing we're going to do is have a water communion. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to share your one word for this year. That may be what you are bringing. Hopefully you will be living in that one word. I will be checking up on you. Let's make 2021 an amazing year. Let's take advantage of the opportunities that we have before us to grow, to do better, and to be better. Welcome 2021. Let us now extinguish our chalice by reading together the words that appear on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. My friends, I am so happy to be bringing in this new year with you. I leave you with the full prayer as a new year begins by Kate Lohr. Spirit of life, as this new year begins, we turn inward to reflect. What lessons have we learned in the past year, and which new ones now call us forward? To whom do we still owe an apology or expression of thanks? And with whom must we draw fresh boundaries? As we pause from our regular rhythms of rush, 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 we open ourselves to new perspectives and possibilities. We give thanks for these moments that the wisdom may afford us. May they help bring us together in the sacred dynamics of life so that we as individuals and as members of community might reach our full potential. As we step across this threshold, let this new year be a year of greater awe and gratitude, of deeper kindness and acceptance, and more courageous acts of conviction. For a kinder, more equitable, sustainable world is not only possible, she is here. And in the quietness of this sacred community, we can even hear her breathing. Amen, and go in peace. As we transition back into our world of service, I'd like to share with you some announcements of things that are happening here in the First Church community. Every Sunday after service, we have coffee hour on Zoom. If you'd like the link to join us, it's member-care@firstuu.com. On the first Sunday of every month, members of our Board of Trustees are available and will participate during coffee hour to hear what's on your mind. So whether you have questions about First Church or questions about specific things happening here with our ministries and with our programs, we're eager to hear your questions and to give you answers. Also, on Monday, you will receive a survey by email. We are looking at the way that we communicate here at First Church. The pandemic has exposed a lot of things for us, that email works better for some than others, that YouTube works better for some than others, that some people still want to receive a printed newsletter. So we've put together a survey that has 13 or 14 questions on it that are designed to elicit your thoughts. Do you feel heard at First Church? What information are you missing? And how can we best communicate it to you? So please respond to that survey when you see it. Also coming up this week, you will see an invitation to register for our congregational meeting. Congregational meeting will happen on January 31st at 11 o'clock via Zoom. Registration is required if you intend to vote at the meeting and to receive the Zoom link for it. So please respond to the registration request. You need register only one time. You can register for another person if the two of you, for example, will be sharing a computer. But please register only one time. Thank you very much, and have a blessed new year.